Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the second unofficial Pi slash digital asset podcast. So I came up with the idea of calling it the Pi unofficial podcast after I recorded the last one. So if you have a different name that might, resonate with the community, you can go ahead and leave me a comment in the comment section below to let me know what you're thinking. There is a tremendous amount going on in the digital asset space at the moment, and there is just not. It seems like there's not enough, room to cover it. There's so much to go over. So for this session, or these sessions in general, I'm gonna aim to talk, a lot about what is going on with the Pi network specifically, but I'm also going to talk about what's happening in the digital asset space in general. So you'll be hearing a mix of both those things. I'll do my best to keep the Pi network information up front with the podcast, and we'll go from there. So all right, so today is it's the 21st of November 2020, and I'm going to share some of the ideas that come into my mind and some of the ideas that are actually being shared around on the network. So this morning I got a message that from the Pi network that they're at 9.5 million active users daily, and there's going to be either a halving of the mining rate or a reduction to zero when it gets to 10 million. So definitely keep on mining those coins, those Pi coins, and I'm hoping that it only halves and does not go to zero. So that's my hope. That's what I put my vote in for, and maybe I'll read the suggestion I made at some point, or just give a brief summary of that here. Basically, I was relating. I'm thinking that Pi can be used on a global scale for universal basic income, and if there's an inflation rate of about 2% per year, then that would make it similar to gold. But the market for this would be way larger than gold, and so I think it would be ultimately more valuable than gold. I don't think it should ever go to zero, but I think that it can serve, as a means of distributing universal basic income on a global scale. So I feel like that is a niche that's like waiting to be I don't know if the term is exploited, but like filled, I suppose. And I feel like Pi fits perfectly into that because it fits on a global scale. So there's that. Now, gold inflates at about 2% per year, and it still has tremendous value. So if the Pi core team could just, ultimately set it up so that when we get to, I don't know, 500 million, a billion people, it gets to about, a 2% inflation per year, then I think that would be really excellent going forward. I'm already finding economies for Pi in my home, so we might not be able to exchange them officially with each other yet, but you can easily keep a ledger personally to see who owes what and who's going to be sending what to whom. So I'm keeping a spreadsheet like that, and it might be just a simple bet, like somebody normally doesn't eat all their food, and so I bet you that you took a lot of food today. I bet that you're not going to eat it, and you bet that you are, and we're going to put some Pi coins on it, as the wager. So see how that works out, and depending on that, then I just update my ledger to say, okay, well, when the Pi coin goes to the main net, then I'll need to transfer this amount, to your account for XYZ, interactions. So I'm already making use of the Pi coin, even though they're not officially, tradable yet on the main net. So there are some thoughts that I had. One of them was that I'd like to see a continuing count of the number of users on the Pi network. I'd like that to be somewhere visible in the app. So, if you all are out there and you want to upvote that idea or present it to the Pi core team, I feel like that would be really cool for the community to know just how many people, we're interacting with. So there's one idea. And another thought was, how should we think about Pi? I think that, priority number one when the time comes around to push the button is that, I push the button. So that's my main goal every day right now, pretty much, is like, okay, is the Pi button active? Like, do I need to go ahead and push that? And if it is, then I go ahead and make that happen. So that's one idea. I feel like there's an outside possible reward for a fairly tiny amount of effort. So yeah, I would encourage you all to have that same mindset and just push that Pi button when it becomes available every day. Some people, kind of take things for granted. I was listening to a talk by Michael Saylor the other day, and he said it's hard to give things away for free. He has a free online university that you can go and get your degree online. And he supports it financially, and he's like, look, it's hard to give things away. And I know personally as well, it definitely is hard to give things away for free. So I guess maybe unless it's food, but even that sometimes you might have a hard time. So yeah, so there's one way of thinking about Pi. So another thought that I had was really thinking about, what are we doing here with the Pi community? I feel like what we're doing is actually developing a kind of virtual nation. So I don't know exactly what that entails, but that's how it's coming together in my mind. There's a virtual nation that's being, that's coming together on the platform that is the Pi network. I feel like, it's kind of like Facebook because, it is a social coin, right? But then it's going to be a lot more cohesive because of the ecosystem that's being built around it, because of the common currency that's going to be used within the ecosystem. So I feel like that's going to bring a lot more cohesion to the network. And so with that, the ideas that should be presented should have in mind the idea of a nation. What does this nation want to embody? If it's going to have a constitution, what is it going to be? So these are some of the ideas that I think, would be worthwhile thinking about. I haven't, gone more deeply into those ideas yet, but just the idea that, we're actually developing a nation here, a digital nation, is pretty interesting to me. So the next point I have is about the Pi ecosystem development. So actually I already mentioned that. So just how I use the Pi coins in my home already. And so if you're just getting started with Pi, I would recommend reading the posts under the announcements. Read the entire history, because it gives you a great history of pi. So, I didn't know many things when I got started, but if you read through that history of the posted announcements in pi, then it gives you a great history of what has gone on with the pi network so far in its life. So that's a little pro tip for anybody that's interested. So is that. There's also, I would like to see, the amount of pi coins in circulation. That's another piece of data that I'd like to know. I don't know if the people who run nodes are going to have access to that information, but that's something I'd like to know as well, like the number of pi coins in circulation and, its current inflation rate. So that's something I feel like, just ultimately would be useful information as well. I've had some of my friends ask me, why am I weak on pi? When you when you go to mine your coins, it says, that your security is weak. Well, if that's the case, then you just need to invite more people to your network and then add them to your security circle. So that's how you can strengthen your security circle in the pi network. So invite people with using your username and then add them to your security circle. That's how you can get a stronger security circle. All right. So, as another thought on the value of pi, I feel like value will come about spontaneously as the community agrees on the value of pi. If we have nothing else, if we don't have anything to give, then we can use pi. Like, some people might not have money. Some people might not have, X or Y or Z to exchange, but then they could use pi. Like, there are kids in this house, they're not working. So what do they have coming in the way of a resource? They really don't have much. And so I set up, pi accounts for the kids here. And so now they actually have a resource. They don't have anything else coming in on a regular basis, but they do have access to pi, ultimately. And so they can use that as a resource for exchange. Me as an individual, now we have a market. So I'm willing to do an exchange with them, and I have different resources that they can have access to in exchange for pi. So that's how the ecosystem develops. I feel like it develops spontaneously as we go about using the coin, and I'd encourage you to use it that way as well. Maybe I'll start, giving pi coins as an allowance or something like that, maybe for doing the dishes or vacuuming. So that's something that you might want to do in your own, local ecosystem. So, next thing I wanted to mention, so I have this thing here called Deindividualization, and I don't remember what that was, so maybe I'll need to put clearer notes on some of the ideas that I'm going about, because I might have the idea in mind, but I need to flesh it out a little bit more. So all right. So a lot of fiat regimes have the ability to print fiat currency, but they don't have the ability to print purchasing power. You see? That's why the amount that you're able to purchase as the value of your fiat currency gets inflated away, it loses purchasing power. So they're not able to print purchasing power. And that's ultimately what we want to be measuring with the currency that we're using. So There's a question. Right now, the US dollar is the king of the hill as far as, global currencies are concerned. But what will be the next global currency? There is going to be something after the US dollar. And what will that be? I feel like pi can fill that gap. Pi can fill the gap of what the next global currency will be. So I wrote here, what is really going on here? It's a borderless country. Are we netizens? Instead of citizens, we're netizens. So that was an idea that I had. Another idea that came across my mind, or came across my path this week, was like, this is a renaissance. It's a Renaissance 2.0, because there's such an explosion of ideas, an explosion of currency, an explosion of energy around this idea of digital assets, sparked by Bitcoin. It's really remarkable, the mental shift that is allowed when we realize and study what this technology does and can do in revolutionizing smart contracts, in in distributed networks, in decentralizing trust. There is so much energy pent up in this system that is being released, that it is, it's crazy. So, this week Bitcoin, passed $18,000, and I was listening to one show, and they were saying that they were talking about higher highs for Bitcoin, and they said the first higher high, there was someone who was a Bitcoin OG is what he's called. It was someone on the What Bitcoin Did podcast. He said that Bitcoin in the first bull run went up 10x from the first higher highs. So the next bull run, it went up 30x from the previous higher high. So with my calculation, it seems like it's growing, at a rate of, 3 times what, it originally was. So if it went up, 10x the first time, it went up 30x the second time. In my estimation, it's going up 90x the next time, because I'm multiplying it by 3. The last peak for Bitcoin was $20,000. 90 times 20,000 is $1.8 million. Okay, so yeah, it's 2020 right now. That's my forecast for this bull run. Okay, for this bull run cycle. So I'm seeing Bitcoin hitting $1.8 million. According to their calculation. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that would be completely bananas if it did. So yeah, we're in a Renaissance 2.0 as far as digital assets are concerned right now. And I really like that term, digital assets, over the idea of cryptocurrency. And I was wondering why. Why does cryptocurrency, there's something about it that's a little bit off-putting. And then it dawned on me today that it starts with the word crypt. And then when you're thinking of something that's crypt, it's like it's cryptic, but also a crypt is a grave. It's like death. So who wants to talk about the crypt all the time? So I know that it has a lot of meanings, but in my mind, that word, that it has that energy of like death with it, crypt. So if we were to rebrand these technologies as digital assets, I feel like that would help them to shine a bit more, because then they wouldn't have to overcome a hurdle to get started. So that's one idea right there. Another idea is that, we're exiting the Fiat dark ages. So we've been living in the Fiat dark ages for a long time now, and we're starting to exit that. And you don't know something until you don't know what you don't know. It's that kind of thing. You do not know what you do not know. And we did not know that we were living in the Fiat dark ages. But now that seems to be completely clear to me, now that that idea has entered my lexicon, my verbal mental space. So, yeah, I hope you are getting freed from the Fiat dark ages as well. So I listened to pretty much all the Michael Saylor talks, and I feel like he is a modern day philosopher. With the way that he thinks about the digital asset space, and just in general, just the manner of his thinking. I feel like it's really, I don't know if it's just the idea that it's based on first principles, or it's just really organized, or he's just had time to hone his thought process. I mean, he doesn't need to worry really about anything as far as monetary provision is concerned, about any luxury in life. There's nothing that he needs to worry about. So he is mentally free to explore any topic that he wants to, and there is something really beautiful about that. So he expressed the idea on a recent podcast that I listened to, that the companies that are most successful now, they master certain topics. For instance, Google masters an information network. Okay? Facebook masters a social network. Apple is a mobility network. Amazon is a retail network. Microsoft is an enterprise software network. And so they dematerialized these networks. Think about, Rand McNally, the map company. When they were a physical company, issuing physical books, the books were dumb. I mean, yeah, they seemed really neat and really detailed, but compared to Google Maps, they're dumb. Okay, Google Maps will, Rand McNally was maybe a $50 million company, according to this guy. It's a $50 million company, but you take Google Maps, and Google Maps is what? A $500 million company, a $5 billion company. I mean, it's orders of magnitude more because it's intelligent. So when you dematerialize something, when you make it software, when you make it code, it becomes intelligent. It takes on a life of its own. And that's what's happening with our financial system. Okay? That's what's happening with our asset storage system. That's what's happening with our smart contracts systems, okay, on the Ethereum network, on the Pi network, on the Tezos network, on the Bitcoin network. Like, Bitcoin is the dematerialization of gold, okay? That increases the value of that asset tremendously. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how fast the flippenings happen. And so what's a flippening? A flippening is when a network that you're interested in, especially the Bitcoin network at this point, but eventually when we start ascribing a value to Pi, the Pi network as well, when it flips the valuation of various companies and industries. Okay? Right now, Bitcoin has flipped the silver market, multiple times over. Bitcoin has a market cap of around $340 billion at the moment. So, I wonder, if and when it'll flip the market cap of Tesla. That's going to be interesting. When it flips the market cap of, I don't know, Amazon, when it flips the market cap of gold. So when I feel like, this is something that Michael Saylor talked about, but these are going to be interesting timestamps in the history of Bitcoin, but also in the history of the digital asset space. Like, do we have an overreaching value of this ecosystem? How is that measured? How can that be measured? So these are some, ideas that are going around in my mind at the moment. And so when things get dematerialized, they become more intelligent. And so my question is, what is pi dematerializing? Is pi the dematerialization of a global currency? I feel like that's, a good starting place. So, something to, give some thought to. And, if you have some feedback, let me know. So what is pi dematerializing? So there's this idea that Bitcoin is an emergent phenomena in cyberspace. And it's just a natural progression of wanting a means to exchange value without physical exchange. It's information exchange, not physical exchange. And so pi, in my opinion, is the offspring of two really powerful parents: the social network and the digital asset network. I feel like, obviously that's clear in the name social chain. It's a combination of social network and blockchain technology. So if that was not clear for any of you before, then I hope it becomes clear now. But those are two really powerful technologies that are shaping the world at the moment, and for pi to be at the intersection of those two spaces, I feel is an extremely powerful place to be. So that's something to keep in mind. So there's this idea that Bitcoin is a bank in cyberspace. It's a virtual savings account. See, again, these are some summaries from a Michael Saylor interview that just happened. But he talks about how savings account used to be a thing. You used to be able to go into a bank, deposit your money that you've earned, and then it would return some kind of, it would return something to you. It had a rate of return that was positive, like it would grow. But the fiat regimes have lost the ability to do that. That system has broken down, and now it's being picked up by Bitcoin. It's being picked up by the decentralized finance space. And so, I know a way to get a 10% yield on my fiat currency. I know a way to get, a 6% yield on my digital assets for some of them. So, just yeah, if you're interested in finding those out, then go ahead and let me know. But there are ways to do that. I'm seeing it, every day paid out. So that's something that I find, to be extremely interesting, and rewarding as well. So there's that. Then something that I thought was really poetic, that Mr. Saylor said again, was that Bitcoin is an elemental force. And I thought that was, like I said, poetic, but it resonates, like it makes sense. So we have the natural forces, we have the natural elements. And there's this one that the people of, older times used to speak about. It's ether, just the energy that's in things, the life force that's in things. And I feel like Bitcoin is a distillation of ether, of ethereal energy. Okay. um, and I'll go into this a little bit more, because one of the things that Mr. Saylor said that resonated again with me, he said monetary energy is the apex energy. Okay, kind of like ether is the apex energy. It's the sum of all energies: kinetic, potential, electrical, chemical, nuclear, social, all energy, life energy. Monetary energy is the sum of all those energies. And so, that's why we spend so much time doing that. We go ahead and we harvest resources, and we 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 store all that energy as monetary energy. And so it's a kind of storage of life force. It's a storage of life force. And when you store your energy, one of the really, strong value propositions for Bitcoin is the realization that there will only ever be a maximum of 21 million, of which many millions are already lost. Okay. But with that, Michael Saylor goes into it. It's a system, it's a closed system that's been developed. It's an electronically, informationally, energetically closed system. And so it's not bleeding out energy. Okay? You can store your life force in Bitcoin and it does not get drained away. And so it's a kind of immortality. It's an energetic immortality. It's an informational immortality. It's a monetary immortality. You store your energy just about anywhere else and it gets drained away. Even with Pi, you have to go in every day and you have to push that button. And if you die, the value of your account starts to dissipate if someone does not come up to replace you to start pushing that button. Okay? That's what happens. But with Bitcoin, if you own one Bitcoin and you store that in your wallet with your keys and you do not get hacked, then that one Bitcoin will stay there. It is not getting taxed. It is not getting, devalued. It's not getting inflated away. You will have that one Bitcoin in perpetuity for infinity. Okay? That is an extremely significant value proposition for Bitcoin. So I'm just waiting for the days when people just start transacting in Satoshis. I don't know, is that day here already? I mean, they say stack sats, right? So yeah, you gotta hodl, you gotta stack those sats, but unless you're uber wealthy at this point, then you're probably not stacking Bitcoin. You're looking to stack Satoshis at this point. So I'm still stacking my Satoshis. Yeah, that's a tongue twister for you. All right, so Bitcoin is pure monetary energy in a vacuum. I feel like that's a nice way to sum up pretty much all of what I just said. So yeah, so if you're interested in these ideas similar to it and how to build on them, read, listen, and think about Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's something I've read before, and I feel like it's definitely something I want to revisit. So I feel like I'll start that after I finish this podcast today, listening to Think and Grow Rich, or reading it again, or just listening to it in an audiobook. So Think and Grow Rich, that's gonna be on my doing list. So there's that. So there's this idea called the reticular activating system that I came across again from a different podcast that I was listening to. But the individual that was pointing this out gave a great example. He said, okay, well, just for now, if you're doing something and you can stop what you're doing safely, stop what you're doing. Look around your environment and pay close attention to everything that is red, okay? So identify everything that's red in the room and just, do your best to look around and see if you can find those things. I'll give you another, moment or so to do that. And, just lock them in your mind. Now close your eyes and I want you to try and remember everything that is green. So are you able to remember anything? Are you able to actually see those green things in your mind? Well, this is what's called the reticular activating system, because if you tell your mind to focus on something, it'll focus on it, but to the exclusion of many other things. So, you're looking for things that are red, but you miss out on the things that are green. And so in life, you want to be able to, stay open, keep your mind open to look at different things. Don't just get focused on that one thing so much. Even though the power of focus is great, you want to be able to stop sometime and look around and take in your surroundings. It reminds me of a portion of the story I read. One of my favorite books is The Prophet, but I'm not talking about the prophet here. Is it The Prophet? I mean, yes, The Prophet is one of my favorite books, but The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I don't know if I'm Coelho. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name properly, but it's The Alchemist. And there was one point where the main character in the book went to the great king and asked him, what is the meaning of life? And so the great king gave him a teaspoon of oil and told him to go walk around the palace without spilling a drop, and then come back, in an hour, and he would tell him the meaning of life. So he took the teaspoon of oil, laser focused on that teaspoon of oil, walked around the palace, didn't spill a drop, and then came back and said, talked to the king and said, here you go, I brought back your teaspoon of oil, now tell me the meaning of life. And so the king asked him, so what did you think of my palace? What did you think of the great art? The great sculptures, the great facades, the great scenery, the great architecture, the great rooms, the great views. Like, what did you think? And so the main character said, I don't know. I didn't see any of those things because I was so focused on this teaspoon of oil. And then the king said, well, I'm not going to be able to tell you the meaning of life if you haven't seen my palace. So again, take your teaspoon of oil, walk around, and make sure you look at, the art, the scenery, take it in, experience it, explore it. Let me know what you think when you get back in an hour. So he took the teaspoon of oil, he walked around and he looked and he saw the great art, he saw the great paintings. He heard music that he hadn't heard before from animals that he hadn't seen before, saw views that were just amazing. And then he came back an hour later and he was ecstatic. He was really thrilled, telling the king about, this and that he saw. And then the king said, okay, but what about the oil in your spoon? And he looks down and all the oil was gone from his spoon. And so the king said to him, in life, what you need to do is keep the oil in your spoon, but observe what is going on around you. And that story stood out in my mind, but how to do that is the question. how do you keep the oil in your spoon and still take into consideration the different things that are going on around you? That's the question. So I mentioned this to someone, and she gave me a great insight to it. She said you need to stop every now and again and look around. Because if you're walking around with the oil in your spoon, as you're walking, you focus on the spoon. But every now and again, stop, stand still, look around you, take it in, be here now kind of situation. All right, that way you're not going to be spilling the oil in your spoon, but you're able to take in the things that are going around you as well. So I feel like that's a neat way of interacting with the reticular activating system. That's kind of a long story, but you know, it's all good. So yeah, there's that. You know, there's the idea that money is an emergent phenomena. Like it just comes about. You know, like that's kind of what's happening with the ecosystem in the house right now. The kids, you know, don't have any source of income, and you know, the pi coin comes into being, and so now they have something that they can use to exchange value because I am willing to, you know, do business with that. And that's the thing, you need to have a market. I'm a market maker. Okay. So there's this idea of global non-sovereign stores of value. Bitcoin is one such thing. Cryptocurrencies are such things, and I feel like pi is definitely such a thing. So it's non-sovereign, but is it going to be electronically sovereign? You know, if pi were a country, you know, a digital country, what would it be called? A digital world, what would it be called? So those are, you know, some things to consider. All right. So, you know, just to finish off, last few points here, the dematerialization of a sector increases its value by 1,000 times. And so, you know, pi is the dematerialization of fiat currency. It's the dematerialization of fiat currency on a